Vocabio. Master English your way.
The eternity not, the solidsman's not, again, from that moment forth, they will become.
In ham soup growing up, which was kind of gross and looks like snot, but I used to like that, and I wanted to make a split.
The eternity not, the solidsman's not, again, from that moment forth, they will become.
Moment was sodden with tears and snot. Now, years later, I began to ask myself,
In ham soup growing up, which was kind of gross and looks like snot, but I used to like that, and I wanted to make a split.
Because of occupation and because of the distractions. So first, and it's
Cyprus, the Indian occupation of Kashmir, and many other examples. If we...
my profitable occupation. Now, I'm a libertarian columnist, which means
to avoid, you know, the kind of the womanhood occupation of having to be married. And a lot of the girls, when you read about them,
unlike, well, literature as a...
I think the person was thinking about dandelions, if that helps.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
They're little knives, and pick these little wild dandelion that taste fantastic when they're cooked in olive oil. You notice
some children are like dandelions. They're robust and they can flourish in lots of places.
And use those, or dandelion greens, which are something that grow all over California and are really
sorrel, sweet dandelion.
Should be at least credited as go on record.
Saying that I think can now be credited first to Dmitry Alperovich, that there were only two types of companies.
For a $4,000 child tax credit, and he took it. Of course he took it.
Modesty, didn't get any headlines, didn't get any credit, didn't label it as that. But he knew
50-year-old rich white men tell the world what's wrong with it and how to put it to rights. And we thought, this is awful. This is...
It's raspberry ketones or adaptogens.
And so if you think about it, if your respiratory tract was inflamed throughout that period, then now you
and they have, like, you know, raspberry jam on them, but I just collected all these recipes.
I couldn't eat raspberries for breakfast in winter, which I just did yesterday. In fact,
summer we'd spend an entire day picking raspberries, then she taught us how to make raspberry jam, and then the next day we'd make little
as EA is both a philosophy and a social movement that aims to use evidence and reason.
Motivator, if you can bring, and I'm really excited about AI movements in this, where you can generate your future selves, because it makes everything much easier.
Indian independence movement during World War II.
Black activism during the civil rights movement, and then we talk about it now. But that story
of the social justice movement, even though quite clearly, historically, Israel is a post.
And welcoming. Typically, you walked into a hostel up until 20 years ago. You walked through a little door.
Salvation Army hostel in Paris, 1929.
And they build a series of hostels where, if you have the right coin,
hostile. Sometimes it makes us hostile.
And timber construction and kind of rammed earth.
Us mortals, the crooked timber of humanity, and how the practice of religion in general.
Like everybody wants the ball.
It's the timber bulls, man. It's Thibodeau and the timber bulls.
Yeah. Mortals, the crooked timber of humanity, and how the practice of religion in general.
It was originally meant also to be mass timber. In 2018, it was designed to
find rooms tossed, ornaments broken, and chairs stacked atop tables. They decided to
can intervene, not as an ornament, but as a catalyst. In an age overflowing with
design profession, ornament, the politics of architecture and subjectivity, smart cities.
A chrome swoosh hood ornament on that. So just to show you back to that.
Service of the surface of the ornament of the building, or the ornament of the building gets.
Family business Purdue Pharma had a painkiller called MS-Contin, which was for cancer.
He got painkillers called Oxycontin.
I'm just saying, don't have fun as a painkiller.
Okay, so if you have a reason to be unhappy,
away. Okay, so the same painkiller that you take for your headaches actually works in some sense.
And anti-anxiety medications instead of painkillers when they present to the emergency department complaining.
Himself, and he has now since won multiple awards. The book is a moving account.
To chair the team, and you were awarded an OBE for your services to the sport. In 2009, you retired saying,
I think 8 years to adjudicate the case. They awarded the family something like 50,000 euros, and they still haven't paid.
He's a journalist, author, and campaigner. He's won numerous awards for his investigative journalism, war reporting.
Michał won the International Press Freedom Award in 2014. He's the author of several books, including
everybody the same, you know, from the janitor, you know, to the CFO. And that's just something.
Studying full-time, working as a part-time janitor, working to be on law review. It's a great example.
You know, they care for the well-being of the janitor, or who might be coming in at night, for example.
A lot of my friends had some pretty funky jobs, like janitor in the middle of the night in the dorms, or like working in the IT.
Condition of the building that you're in. Very handy if you're a janitor, but also quite nice if you're an architect, I should imagine.
Crushing and without fair pay. Wages in the UK, for instance, we've seen more than a decade of pay stagnation.
Are still there, but they're now being waged by a whole variety of different means.
Form like healthcare, like a living wage. These are basic progressive rights.
Myanmar, the Biden administration waged the sanctions, but the military junta is still
defeated in battle. It is for the benefit of those who wage war, defeat other nations, then occupy.
More unpredictable. Last year, vast quantities of rain on the Tanzanian side
is a much more important consideration than quantity. Now, a lot of what's been said by Anne.
In a million in terms of the quantity of data, there was a little rapidly varying signal.
Goals. It's probably not great to consume huge quantities of that type of chicken. It's also not great for the
back so far in time. This new quantity of knowledge about
food. So there's definitely lots of similarities. I guess what's been different for us is that we start.
And there are striking similarities between how the conversation has evolved in America and
the education sector and what the similarities were. For example, if you think about it, one luxury product.
A degree of similarity between some of those regimes.
Into these people's identities, because those identities had similarities. They had the same first name, the same date of birth.
Mars on one of Elon's rockets, and you try to access a web page, you'll still see a cookie banner. No one in the
to allow us to more readily access the optimal state. Is that fair?
And I have the right to access that, or the police do, if and when there's if they're.
And in order to do that, he gave them free access to use your data. It was a way of getting them to work very, very quickly.
Autonomous AI assistant that lives on your computer, has access to all of your stuff if you let it. Talks.
Search for your next video rather than scrolling through the recommended section. If you're like me, you might find
and you're not scrolling past it. You're not telling the app what it is.
Our feed scroll through Instagram or YouTube and like notice how our time.
Influence and relatedness. We also know as you scroll down, we love the reviews, right? And what's interesting.
Remember your bank code or pull out your phone and scroll social media for a few minutes. This works.
Chorus of nerds and geeks. Also had easy access to those characters because I know them very well.
You're in a room full of tech geeks here, essentially, right? And you know, and one could.
And for any of the data geeks out there, the charts are all there showing the general trends.
This way, and oftentimes engineers are geeks or whatever, and they go into too much.
And let's just say time flew by. Just in terms of when you put geeks together, we just end up having interesting conversations.
Passionate capitalism, you know, Ila Bhatt Seva or Amul. Or many
generation, through all the hardships, they're risk averse. They are massive savers. All the international controversies that we've had.
Their system is idle. They just run the screensaver and it computes.
My door, and it really you're a lifesaver.
Right. So you've got people like that, and then you've also.
I went over and looked at Yorgos' screensaver on his computer, and there were his grandparents.
his team will be remaining on console throughout the course of the evening, keeping a watchful eye on things.
And white TVs, but they're those big consoles like a piece of furniture. You know, they have a screen in the middle. And
the opening letter is a consoling letter, and I'll read it for you. It's just the openings. And
to make his horse a console, right? That's the kind of, that's the, you know, the...
From 1977, she's sitting at a console in Mission Control in Houston, wearing...
of using it to actually create new sensors so that what we've been talking about so far.
Result of converting light that strikes an electronic sensor into a digital representation. And so one of the...
on the ground and go back and forth so that sensors can show you what's actually happening in real time. Let's make that vision than our most advanced military sensors. Now I knew that if both the smartest minds in technology
you know, a low radiation sensor, and that was the metal detectors, which became the TSA.
By even a nickel or a dime will help fund the Highway Trust Fund, and at least
is actually people able to speak up on a dime on any topic, to be able to participate.
The American Basketball Association and the Dropping Dimes Foundation. The Dropping Dimes Foundation is a nonprofit that works
at the flip of a coin or on a dime. As a
percent, be a dime or quarter, something like that.
I like it. Well, I'm going to.
A lot of fun. It will be very CMC, barbecue, hanging out, fun in the sun.
The class dinner.
A really good friend of mine, Rodney Scott, who's got Scott's Barbecue. At the time, he only had one store, which was way out.
Making them in a Brazilian barbecue at night, and all still consulting during all this time.
Japanese associated it with Korean barbecue, not with finance. But on the flip side,
I do have some favorites. One thing I do have a favorite of is North Carolina barbecue. Hands down, that is my favorite.
Right, you know, that's not a Trump voter, but that party didn't have any
sort of great lie that those voters in Atlanta and Philadelphia and Detroit,
their careers, they are also voters and thinkers and lovers and parents and friends and travelers and neighbors.
So he firmly wants to bring in is voter ID, which is solving a problem that really doesn't exist. I think
current suggestions about voter ID, because there have been a couple of
certain circumstances, the idea that it's like a household, and you know, if there's a recession, therefore you need to
point in time from households changing their energy consumption in response to different
clothing or household items like curtains or dish towels. And when the packaging companies
talked about the education gaps, but you know, 40% of British households now have a female breadwinner, and that's just
the internet proliferates in every possible household appliance, often I think completely gratuitous.
Well, mostly what the court does is uses a checklist to go through the filings in collection cases to make sure
they'll be very familiar, but it's kind of like a checklist. If you go through this list with your project and with your work in mind.
But I'm getting there. And we have our checklist and we divvy up the responsibilities along with grocery lists.
Seeing those strengths to make synergy. So the checklist. So that's the first thing. I'm doing Jana's checklist here.
Time, and it doesn't lend itself to a checklist or an Excel document.
Because you don't want to look like a loser or seem foolish or it seems out of reach.
That there's this kind of winners and losers around AI, which I think is a really interesting concept.
Just down here laughing at you because you're here. You're like, oh my God, look at this loser climbing Cringe Mountain. Okay. But at a certain point, you're lead people to feel like I'm a loser, I give up, or the precisely opposite psychological reaction.
Tolerate a loser. What do you think right now is
uncomfortable doctors, they look down at the chart more, or they look more at the computer screen. And
sounds like numbers that are so off the charts. I'm taking it on trust that you're right about that one. But what steps would you say?
I don't know if you watch Family Guy. It's a Peter Griffin skin chart exercise. It's like, do we have enough women in the room to make sure that this is not an...
I think number 2 in the charts with Fairy Tale. And he said, oh, come and meet me in King's Cross.
First of all, I'd just get out some charts and some data. I've already alluded to some of them. So, well,
that's clinic or the reformatory Spiegelgrund. And he followed his own advice.
Tried. So he buckled right in with a trace of a grin on his face if he worried he hit it. He started to sing as he
resentful about it.
Why do I need to grin when you say something that's amusing? Isn't it enough that I just listen?
Office there, and there's Pete Carroll, big old grin on his face, and he's like, "Hey Ben," and I was like, "Hey, Coach."
Was, and a giant grin peeked out through her happy tears as she said,
diverted about 20,000 pounds of items discarded during student move-out season. Everything from perfect
is to actually try and put that item in place tomorrow, do the R&R, get the UP.
They'll execute. There are a few items in the cockpit that have to be configured a little differently. Obviously, if you had
these items, this material culture, these tangible objects.
Categories. Organic wastes are items that can naturally decompose like food. Recycle
the water from the wet and to irrigate the garden.
Very nascent designs. No one should be wedded to this, but you can see what that
really unpacking what that means. You become further wedded to that articulation of self.
The California Supreme Court ruled that gays and lesbians could wed their same-sex partners. We were jubilant, and then
not working the way we thought it would work out. We had a lot of scale-up issues. That was a big failure because
or an icy ramp. Obviously, I can't do either.
통해서 정사로를 설치한 거예요. 근데 정말 놀라운 일은
일주일 into acting and that take us on that ramp.
Yeah, so actually I was going to be
and so things are starting to ramp up now, but it felt like okay, I had a little bit of
right now there's sort of a ramping up of education and communication around what matters.
So I got really excited when these folds and these curvatures generated a plan that allows me to do that.
Well, if our foes acknowledged in the book,
bribery being the example of it, so he's a great foe of that, and he would
cite the theme China, friend or foe. So before we get started,
subjects that are a faux conversation. So just to give you some sense of
I'll say that Jermaine's wearing a perfect sweatshirt for his role in our school. Okay, thank you.
Get out of their pajamas or shorts or sweatshirts and sweatpants and slippers.
The seniors got a half zip sweatshirt that has class of 2021 on it. You know,
girlfriend stuff. Oh, my little sister took my sweatshirt again. And yes, I'm talking to you. And
thousands of years, it doesn't hold a fraction of the prestige held by music or acting.
You see that just a small fraction are taking advantage of this great.
Because you're having a religious celebration, you're just a fraction of the rest of the nation. And you should be accorded.
All this, I have a fraction of the number of subscribers of these beautiful ladies on the panel.
Degrees of warming. There's a world of difference between every fraction of a degree of global warming.
Because who was your singing idol while you were growing up?
Wow, with so many.
And I used to watch these women. They were like my idols, and I was working full time
because of his K-pop idols. And so, yes, you can say,
who's eliminated on American Idol? We have to wake up and find out the next day who's still on.
His biggest music idol is Elvis Presley. I love.
Are young or when the victims are old, and there are differences in
94, 96 were more victims of the stupidity of the regime to send them.
Is it about the victims or is it about the perpetrators?
Well, there's a very
I'm just ally and the victim, and I feel as I
right. You have two types of victims. You have the humans and you have the marine.
Or at dinner, but now they've all been sort of mashed up together, and especially since phones, because now
about this on Top Chef.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to make mashed potatoes and it never happened. 5 hours, I kept believing.
You know, mashup of African culture.
So I'm going to mash that and
mash it down a little bit and fold it together.
At some point, she mentioned the Salton Sea, and very few of you know this.
There are so many books about it. A real fact that Sultan Abdulhamid, the ruler of Turkey for almost more than 30
gift to him from the Sultan of Brunei, and we landed, and I got a personal tour of Petra. Gift to him from the Sultan of Brunei, and we landed, and I got a personal tour of Petra.
Recently, when the current Sultan of the Bamun went to the Humboldt Museum in Berlin.
Laura's hive.
And disorganized. But if you're inside that hive, every single...
And they do quite well.
And now these hives would be moved from crop to crop?
Well, I mean, in this particular case...
Conditions like eczema, psoriasis, and hives too. And while it's less researched,
So honeybees, you have a hive of honeybees and you have one queen.
Architecture firm as something that is worthy of examination on its own right, just as beautiful objects.
Then on examination at random, you find that sugar either is high or low.
The traveling's office begins his examinations at the prompting of his host young son. And
Making Time on Mars, a fascinating examination of how the daily work of NASA's 2004 Mars rover
of the Kobe examination of the microwave background
of the what we call the brine, the leftover salty parts of the urine, and trying to optimize
institutions that were inscribed in that leftover empty space. With this knowledge,
well, to the 2000, which was the leftover, I think, from the Thatcherite, Reaganite.
Finding places that would sell leftover fabrics, not ordering anything.
Booger. Yeah, little leftover norovirus, maybe.
That your work is fantastically kind of a bait and switch. You will never do a circle in my
story of people who felt baited by the shiny by the shiny promise.
And the guys like Livingston at one time, Mo Spates, like everybody kind of plays that role well. And you always talk.
Convince the news to let you on, so we decided to bait them first. We ended up putting up billboards in small cities around the
camera, and that little white tube is full of bait, and we can see which sharks come into the bait.
It's sliced very finely, like seaweed, fine seaweed, wakame.
And the fish and the seaweed, the iodine in the seaweed is thought to have strong cancer.
At a sushi place, it's the seaweed wrapper, the nori is like soggy. But the great thing about
and kombu, which is the seaweed that's coming from deeper in the sea.
This is all, it's katsuobushi, it's kombu seaweed.
The immediate effects of that is that weavers who suddenly have a great supply.
Bengal. So this place which had the 1 million weavers, which is the, if you like, the goose laying the goose.
Thanks so very much.
I just enjoyed Alien with Sigourney Weaver, with a smart woman who nobody listens to ends up the only...
The systems theoretician Warren Weaver, actually in a very, maybe deliberate, but...
We learn to look in our inside mirror, outside mirror, over our shoulder, then signal, inside mirror.
The local policeman or the chief of police or the mayor and so forth. And this leads to...
Running for mayor, and I wrote a $250 check, run young Republicans for mayor.
A wonderful,
Who's allegedly posher than me, at least when we...
I think by a mile, but...
And demand these kinds of changes, and demand from mayors and governors that they invest in public health and invest...
Loud and clear, homie.
I got you loud and clear as well. POT.
Get drugs and everything like that. But my homie was working there, and this is a point
to treat brain cancer. And here, this one's homing right in on the cancer, better than surgery. This was a surprise.
Yeah, I just had one more question. Homie, you expressed.
Where is the question coming
from?
Right here.
Oh. Sashimi, what's up? I see you right there. Yeah, that's my homie right there. So we're...
What is interesting is the completely different reaction of the Eisenhower administration and American society.
I'm not surprised or have some sort of judgmental reaction like that where it's confirming their own beliefs. And they
acceptable
And so my reaction was obviously, one of horror, but also
show that, there's a real international reaction that I think China would certainly heed.
Heard about it, and what was your reaction as you watched those scenes at Kabul airport? Shabnam, I'll go to you first.
This time, and they have very powerful claws that they use for fishing, and they could have ripped my face.
Spotted cats. You can hear his claws on the ground. Cheetahs are the only big cat.
Such as sharp teeth or claws, and defensive resources such as thick skin and speed. Primate species depend
to pick, and then with a rotating claw, it can delicately pick off those berries and those berries.
Exhibition games, and then the claws folded as well. So I was very fortunate to get.
The left-hand photograph, he was an inmate in the right-hand photograph. He grew up in a
go to San Quentin to kind of feed some of the inmates in the fall or the winter, hopefully by the holidays. And it's kind of interesting.
Work, listen to an inmate, tell him that he was actually innocent, and
prisons, especially for young inmates. New York State is one of only 2 in the U.S. that automatically.
And it's like the kids meet the inmates, and it's to scare them out. And they walk in, and the one inmate goes.
Vocabio, available in Google Play. Download, discover, improve your English.